Okay. We're going to have a few remarks from Master Sergeant Bobby Stanford of the 799th Air Base Squadron of the U.S. Air Force. Sorry.
Hello, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak to the community of Mesquite. I'm Master Sergeant Bobby Stanford of the United States Air Force. I'm currently stationed at Creech Air Force Base. I've served in the United States Air Force for a little over 18 years. Of that time, I've been overseas for about 16 of that 18 years. I am an Iraq war veteran. I've been deployed with Air Force units as well as Army units. And I'm here today to talk to you about why we serve. Some of the things I'm going to go over are some of those reasons of why people choose to serve in the military. I'm going to get a little synopsis of some of the wars and conflicts. And then I'm going to go into a little bit of why I myself had joined the military and decided to serve our country. Now that you know a little bit of what I'm going to go over today, some of the topics I'll be speaking on, let me go over some of the reasons of why folks have decided to serve. Why we serve. I believe the number one reason is for freedom, patriotism, love of country, but there are also other reasons. Sometimes we're in economic struggles, and sometimes people don't have a choice. We decide to go into the military because there's great benefits and very good pay, thanks to those veterans that have fought for us to have those kind of benefits today. God bless you. Thank you for that. And then there was some of us that have served that really didn't have a choice. We were drafted. Some of those from Vietnam era were drafted. And then also we have those that have done it for family tradition. Our forefathers had served. Our fathers have served. Cousins, brothers, families, and sometimes our neighbors. And we wanted to keep that tradition alive. Now that I've discussed some of the reasons why folks have served in our military, let me speak on some of these wars and conflicts that we have served in. Forgive me if I do not mention all the wars and conflicts. It does not minimize the sacrifice of those veterans and families of those. Now you all heard of the Revolutionary War. I believe that was one of the biggest ones that we can thank our forefathers for fighting in. We basically didn't have representation for the taxes that we were paying. And a lot of Americans got tired of that. So they fought for that. They fought for that separation from the Queen and those taxes. We also have the Civil War. There are folks that fought for not only federal rights, but for the state rights, which give us the balance that we have today, and also the abolishment of slavery. There are those that have served in World War I with the fight over powers in Europe, which led into World War II as well, with the Axis powers of Japan and Italy and Germany. There are those that have served in the Korean conflict when Korea was split into two following World War II, where you have the communists in the north and you have the democracy-led American forces in the south. And basically the communists, northern communists, try to take over the south and push it all the way down, but thank God those fighting men were out there to push them back. Now I'm trying to push us back down, but I'll tell you what, we're still at that 38th parallel today. That war's still not over, for those that don't know. That war was never declared over. And then we have our Vietnam vets, those that have fought against communism again, to try to spread freedom and democracy throughout the world. And that led into the Cold War with Russia and the arms race, which we also won with the support of President Reagan and the folks out there during that time, all the support that we got, and the veterans that served during that time with our missiles, our missile defense, our nuclear deterrence forces. And another one of our major conflicts was the Gulf War, which I'm a little more familiar with. It's more around my age. That's when Saddam Hussein, after many years of fighting between Iraq and Iran, had depleted their money and their finances and thought it was a good idea to push down into Kuwait and take the oil and make it their own. But America wasn't hearing that. We got involved with that, which led into Desert Storm. Lasted about what was it? Anybody? Less than 100 hours or something like that. So then also today we are still doing operations, contingency operations over in the Middle East that have came out of the war on terrorism that we're still fighting today. We pulled out of Iraq, but we still have folks out there fighting Afghanistan, so let's not forget about those folks that are still out there. Of these wars and these conflicts, which they are all a part of our American history, and the world would be a different place today if it wasn't for those fighting men and women that volunteered. Some were drafted, but continue to serve and still continue to serve today by choice. There was one that stood out for me, and I would have to say it was probably Desert Storm. And the reason why I say that is because I remember I was in high school at the time, really didn't know what I was going to do. And I had a cousin that returned from Desert Storm with all his neat stories and whatnot. And I thought it was a good idea, maybe I should serve. So that was one of the main reasons why I decided to serve, seeing him. But I guess there was another part that made me decide to serve, and that was my father. He's a Vietnam veteran. He was a jet engine mechanic during Vietnam. Didn't talk much about it, but I remember him and my cousin having lots of discussions with me not in the room, and I wanted a piece of that. So I really couldn't afford college. The mines had shut down from the town I'm from, and I thought, you know what, why not? I have family that served our country. Let me go ahead and do it. So, went to check it out. I actually talked to the Navy at first. Kind of liked what they had to say. My dad didn't like what they had to say, being an Air Force vet. So he dragged me over to the Air Force recruiter, and I was trying to get into electronics or electrical or something of the sorts. And the Navy had promised me that. So, despite my father telling me to join the Air Force, I thought I was going to join the Navy because they had it all set up for me for a nice job. My cousin's war stories were great, but seemed a little too intense for this guy. And I'll get into a little bit of a story about that here in a minute. But the day I went to actually sign up for the Navy, the Air Force recruiter came out and said he had an electrical job lined up. And my dad said, "Now's your chance. You have no excuses now to be an airman." So I went ahead and joined the Air Force and became part of that 1%, which I'm very proud to be a part of. During this time, I'll let you know that I was overseas for about 16 years of that. Part of the 16 years I fought in Iraq, and being an airman, I thought I would be on the bases. Support for the aircraft, you know, doing my thing as an electrician. And when I say electrician, not working on the actual aircraft, I actually do stuff like you see out on the pole lines and your facility electrical. So I thought I was going to be safe getting out of ground combat, but that wasn't the case. The Army decided that they needed a little help, which is great. It was quite a blessing to serve with the Army and see what they went through. So I served with the 5th Engineer Brigade while I was in Iraq. I've been to Iraq a few times, but the one that I remember quite vividly was doing convoys with the Army and seeing some of that. And if any of y'all want to talk to me about those stories after this, especially those veterans, I would be glad to see you after this and discuss that with you. So my time in the service is closing to an end soon. I only got a few more years left. I think my wife thinks I have more than that. So we can retire at 20, but I think we might decide to stay in a little longer. So I like to remember that those that are on active duty, those that have served on active in the Guard and Reserves. I've talked a little bit about why people have decided to serve. I've talked a little bit about some of the wars and conflicts. I wish I had more time. We can go into more details on that. And I can talk to you after this about it if you'd like to. And I know we got a lot of veterans here. They can tell us a whole lot about it, firsthand stories. So if you have the opportunity to get those stories from them. I've also discussed a little bit of why I joined the service and why I continue to serve and hopefully serve some more. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to speak today. I'd like to thank you for your continued support. I'd like to thank our veterans. Many of the veterans here today that are still serving us. And I'd also like to thank our law enforcement, those that protect us here in the United States, and many of them abroad as well. Excuse me. So like I said, if you have some time, come to me. I'll be here for a little while. And I'd like to thank you and thank you for your support.
I just have one question for you. How hard did your dad have to twist the arm of that recruiter to come up with that electrician's job? Did he have some influence there?
Yes, he did. It's funny you said that, because when I first talked to the Air Force recruiter, he said there's a lot of security forces and ground combat support that we could fill you in on. And my dad said, well, I don't know about that, but I guess apparently my dad, I found out later, went back to the Air Force recruiter, and it's good that you keyed in on that, because I think they had a little backdoor conversation when I wasn't there, and I think my dad made him come up with that opening.
I wondered. It sounded like that might happen. Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much.